Alrighty, good day, everybody. My name is Can. I'm here with Lyngso, and we have Randy Ritchie here with us, our repeat speaker from Malibu. He's the founder of Malibu Compost, and we're going to be talking about food safety, the supply chain. Gosh, I can't talk today, and the need for growing a healthy organic garden. So, welcome, Randy, and the class is all yours.
All right. Hey, thank you, Ken. Nice to be with everybody again. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to do multiple classes at Lyngso. Always love doing that. And, I'm in the way the world's been recently, which is why we're doing this class. Had to do a lot of stuff online, so have gotten more comfortable with it. I do love doing classes in person. That's really much more my style. So, trying to add a lot of pictures and stuff in the PowerPoint. So we'll take it away from there. So I think this is a topic that's really important to all of us today. I think, I don't know anybody unless you're living, in a cave or under a rock who's not heard about, food safety issues, supply chain issues, which in turn, if you add those two things up, equal the need for growing a healthy organic garden. That's kind of my premise on the talk today. So here we go. This is who I am. That's that's our farm up in Oregon, Nubu Farm, and that's our little Deutz-Fahr tractor, and it's an awesome piece of equipment. If you have questions, my emails are up there. They're on here, Randy@MalibuCompost.com, Randy at number 2 Organics. And I answer my emails, if I don't answer like immediately in 1 second, if I answer in a couple days, they all get answered, so please don't hesitate to reach out and don't hesitate to ask questions, because I believe that, the more knowledge we have and the more we're communicating, especially in the world of today and the world of the future, the better. So my intro questions, I always ask questions. If I was sitting here in person with you guys, I'd ask us, the obvious question of why are we here on this Zoom class? Who here is an organic gardener or an organic farmer? Who here is an organic consumer? Should we be worried about the supply chain? Ken and I were just talking about that before we got on. And what is food safety? And what does it have to do with any of this? So food safety, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. In today's world, I threw a couple dice up there because sometimes I believe that we are rolling the dice. As somebody who works in the farming industry, I see a lot of stuff, a lot of pressures being put on agriculture and on farmers right now, and which is the beginning of the food chain. And a lot of people are really, having a tough time in terms of, labor, in terms of other things. So there's a lot of stress on that beginning point, that first pressure point, which is our, which gives us food, brings food into our marketplace. So defined food safety. So food safety by the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. I'm going to look at it from a governmental point of view first. Uses this term to mean the range of food-related activities from prevention and surveillance to detection and control. They believe that an effective food safety system will protect the nation's food supply, whether the contamination is intentional or unintentional. And that's kind of an ominous, piece that they're giving. So who is the ASTHO? What do they do? So basically, they're the guys that we've been seeing during COVID that help create public policy. They're the public county health officials and state health officials that work on the local, the state, and the federal levels. And you've seen some of these folks, on there on different interviews and different things going on. And that's what they're doing. They help create policy, and that is how to verbally put together a string of words that work for health, and how that permeates the public landscape. My second definition is from the Gov, and it's from the Food and Safety and Inspection Service of the USDA. They define food safety as being responsible for ensuring the meat, poultry, fish, and eggs are safe and properly labeled and packaged. So those are the guys that we're all, really, very common. Everybody pretty much knows who the USDA is. I don't know if you guys are organic gardeners and organic farmers. If you're an organic farmer, then you do know that the USDA runs the USDA organic program. We've all seen that little logo. It's part of our national organic program. So they handle both sides of the fence, the conventional side and the organic side. This is what, little inspection here. This is what they get involved in, very detailed inspection. The FDA joins the government and the USDA in that, and they start to be like at the ports, and they're looking at things at the ports. They're looking at everything that the USDA doesn't regulate, the FDA does in terms of food handling in the United States, in terms of food safety. My third definition, is a broader reach. It's the global reach, and that's from the WHO, the World Health Organization. Access to sufficient amounts of safe and nutritious food is key to sustaining life and promoting good health. Food safety, nutrition, and food security are closely linked. Unsafe food creates a vicious cycle of disease and malnutrition affecting infants, young children, elderly, and the sick. In addition to contributing to food and nutrition security, a safe food supply supports national economies, trade, and tourism, stimulating sustainable development. The globalization of food trade, a growing world population, climate change, and rapidly changing food systems have an impact on the safety of food. The World Health Organization aims to enhance at a global and country level the capacity to prevent, detect, and respond to public health threats associated with unsafe food. There's a lot in there. And this is a really important thing for all of us to know, because even if we're buying organic, I've said this multiple times in classes, but I always repeat it, that a lot of times we're buying stuff that's even labeled as USDA organic, and it may be coming from Chile. You might be getting Chilean apples. You might be getting something from somewhere else. We get a lot of our produce that's labeled as organic in the United States from Mexico. So it's important as you look at this to look at what's the government who controls this and who oversees our food safety? How are they looking at it? What do they see? And so when you go all the way down from the little guys who are, the health officials to the USDA to now the World Health Organization, everybody's got a stake in this. Everybody's is a stakeholder. Everybody has a say. And it really, really affects it affects me. It affects me as a farmer. It affects, Can as a person who sells organic products and stuff so that people can grow food. It affects every single one of us. And I personally I'm trying to look at, things, because the global aspect of everything has become so huge that yes, the world's become so small that in that sense, but in other ways, it's so big and so vast. And when you get into these different governmental agencies and world agencies, we're talking about, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and it gets crazy. It's crazy time. So I want to bring this down to what does this mean, for all of us? Here's a PSA, and it's a good question. How safe is your food? Do any of you guys ever ask yourself that question? When you go in and you shop, or when you're picking up a dairy product, or you're picking up some new product, do you ever ask yourself that question? I ask that question. I ask the question too of how organic is this product? How safe is this product? How good is this product? What kind of practices did the farm use that started this process with this product? And then what happened with everybody else that had touches which create cost to this product, and whether it's distribution, whether it's your end user, you guys, or when it gets to the store. So great question. How safe is our food? What happens to us if we can't get safe and healthy food? Where do we source food if the market runs out of food? How are we going to survive? And you guys asking yourselves that question right now, or have you at all recently? I know we had our first scare. Everybody jokes about it, about toilet paper and stuff like that. But there were other things that were real that happened in the beginning of the pandemic that created a whole different view of how things are going. And what we're seeing now is people have been talking, if you follow economics at all, people have been talking about transitional inflation. Transitory inflation. Well, I have to tell you, as somebody who runs a farming operation, I don't see these things as transitory right now. I'm looking at the supply chain. I'm looking at these trucks. I'm seeing more and more and more and more trucks, as all of us are, on the road, And the other thing that I'm seeing there is I'm seeing a lot of these large distributors and a lot of the large, the Amazons of the world, the FedExes of the world, the big, UPSs of the world, all of those guys, are becoming a big part of this supply chain, of this distribution network. And I know firsthand of a site where Amazon is working on a new site where literally you can order stuff and within couple hours get it. So it's becoming this instant kind of thing for some stuff, and for other things it takes forever. So the factors that are weighing on the supply chain: fuel costs. Our fuel costs right now, yesterday oil was at $71 a barrel. Apparently the Saudis and the Russian supply chain have said that they'll try to cap it at 75. We were at $30 last year, you guys. So I mean, we've had a huge change in terms of how fuel looks. I can speak, like up in our farm in Oregon, we've had times, and we buy fuel from a large distributor. We buy our diesel from a large distributor that we have a commercial account with. We've had 3 times that I can remember this year where my guys on the farm called me and said they have no diesel. What do we do? That's a problem. If you have tractors and you have trucks and you have stuff and you're trying to get product from your farm to your packaging plants and then to your distributors, that's a huge problem. And we're a small, relatively small company, and I'm seeing that, already. And the other thing that does when you have something like that happen, it scares your employees. It makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes people feel uneasy in their job. And am I going to have a job? Am I going to be able to continue doing my job? The other thing that we're seeing that's killing the supply chain right now is lack of drivers. Everybody's having a really hard time getting drivers. We're seeing factory shortages everywhere because what happens is you've got, one little widget that's made here that has to go to get to there, and then that piece has to get put together another thing. And what's happening is we're seeing multiple factory shortages of different components that make up the larger whole. Manufacturing delays. You can't get stuff, then it's hard to make it. One of the things that we've been doing on our end is we've been trying to buy things way in advance, try to project, but you're living in a world right now that's really difficult to project in because you don't know, kind of like, are the stores going to be open? Aren't they going to be open? Are we going to have curbside pickup? Are we not going to have curbside pickup? What are the next regulations and rules that are going to get thrown at us just out of the blue because nobody's ever been in a situation like this before? Lack of labor, that's across the board. I know for hiring, I don't know, any of you guys out there, are looking for a job or are hiring people. It's very difficult to hire these days. And the expectation of wage is really, really high, higher than it's ever been. I know that during the COVID pandemic for us, we had, I think we did 2 raises during that time in our company, just because it was the right thing to do. It was what was fair. Shortages of feedstocks and ag supplies. We're seeing that weekly on our, you can order stuff and you might order 50 things and get 22 of them. And that's really, really common too. So, and why I'm belaboring this is because I want to make sure that when we get to the fun part of this, the growing organic food part of this thing, we're all really, really clear about why we need to really be thinking about doing that. And even if we are gardening and growing organically, we better think about maybe upping the game a bit. So I touched on this a minute ago too, but the global economic delays and costs, we are literally having containers of product, a few things that we buy from overseas that are cans going through this as well, sitting out in the ocean, can't come into harbor, have to go to another harbor, offload there if you can get offloaded, then put on a truck and then trucked back up or across state to where we are. And so you have all of these added costs. So the reason that people are now starting to say, economists are starting to say like, oh, this isn't transitory inflation. This inflation is here to stay because some of these costs that we're feeling right now are costs that that unless some magic thing happens and all of a sudden the cost of fuel goes down, the cost of production goes down, the cost of labor goes down, these increases are in pricing are going to stay. And in my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm not an economist. I'm a farmer and a composter. In my opinion, everything we're seeing right now is related in some way back to the COVID pandemic and what happened to us all once we started to have an economic shutdown. It has a big ripple effect, and that's locally, nationally, and globally. So I think we're at a crossroads right now. I think we're at a place where we need to start really looking maybe at how do we maintain our daily life? How do we maintain the sustenance that we have? What are we going to do to make sure that our family can eat, our community can eat, that we not only can eat, but can maintain health? Because more than ever before, I'm looking at, the last live class I ever got to do was the healthy gut class that I got to do with you, Ken, at Lyngso, and it was great. And we were talking about health and about how the gut and how bacteria in the gut, help our immune system. More than ever, like that, if that class was important a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, it's more than important ever that we start to look at how are we going to nourish ourselves in a lot of ways. And the timeline, I thought this was kind of funny. The beginning is near. I mean, the beginning of a whole new dawn of the world, of life, of everything as we know it. It's changing at this kind of pace, So there are moments where I can go out there and sit there on the farm and have an incredible experience where I get taken back to that agrarian, slow breathing, calm, listen to the cows, look at the compost, touch the dirt, rub a bunch of microbes all over me. I have those moments. I'm blessed. And I can do that even in my own urban farm at home. We've created an urban homestead, But the beginning of these changes, you guys, it's here because a lot of businesses that we shop at, a lot of places, they can't continue to survive with the type of shortages and the type of supply chain breakdowns that we're having. So our go-tos, I'll never forget. I was at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show when the first deaths occurred in Kirkland. When the COVID pandemic started. And I remember that morning very clearly leaving my hotel in Bellevue, and I stopped in at the Bellevue Whole Foods Market. And I got an organic cup of coffee, and I had some breakfast foods that I already had in my hotel. So I was just heading across. Everything looked normal. Everything seemed like, hey, I'm just going to another flower and garden show. It's another normal day. The show ended. And it's really interesting because none of us knew this, but we had 65 to 70,000 people in attendance over those 5 days at that show in Seattle. When I got I had no idea what was happening in the outside world because we were in a convention center. By the time I got back to Whole Foods that night to grab a juice and maybe, something, to eat, because the next day I had to leave for our farm in Oregon, the shelves were bare. I called my wife to say, is something going on? And she said, yeah, haven't you heard? People are dying in Seattle. Where are you? And that was my beginning of how this pandemic started for me. And it was a very, very eerie, weird, scary experience that I had. And it was a real wake-up call for me. So what can we do? Okay? What we can do is not be victims to this change that's coming. What we can do is we can be proactive to the change that's coming. What we can do is we look at, we've had this movement over the last several years to localize food. What we can do is we can start to look to those sources. We can start to look to those places in our own community where we have localized sources of food. where can we turn? One of the places that I turn all the time is to my local co-op. Local co-ops buy from local farmers. They aren't beholden to the big Kroger market chain. They don't, it's a whole different supply chain that they buy through. So sometimes when, the big markets here, when things first shut down and there was a hard time getting things, a lot of times our local co-op had things because they buy from different distribution hubs and they buy from more localized and statewide distribution networks. So local, that's, the first thing I would say, to put into your mindset, like, I know we're, in the global big picture, but when it comes down to survival, there's nobody like, somebody in your own neighborhood, in your own community, in your own backyard to turn to try to get, into a survival, mode and get through it. So sourcing local, local grocers, local co-op, local farmers. You have farmers in your area that will sell to, do have a retail outlet or will sell to, customers that come to their farm. Sourcing local, check in with friends. Maybe your friends know. This is the time to network at a time where we're all like super, super busy jumping on, the computer and the internet. And, we're all trying to figure out what's the next thing. The one thing to remember, everybody, is none of us know what the next thing is. We're in uncharted waters here. We're in a different time here. We've never been through this. Our kids have never been through this. Our grandparents have never been through this. We're in a different time. So creating community, really going back in and being involved, family, neighbors, whether you're part of a church or a community organization or a community garden or an outreach program, those people are the first lines of like, okay, so if it hits the fan, build your network. That's a really important thing to do. I have that, like, I can relate that back to how we work it up in our farming community. If something happens and, like, let's say I'm supposed to load a whole bunch of trucks and whoa, my loader went down. I have a whole network of local farmers and friends out there that I can reach out to and say, like, hey, Kevin, can I borrow your loader? Our tractor went down. Or our loader went down. Can you, and we do that for each other because we're in a constant state of machinery breaking down and stuff happening, and we have to rely on each other. And that's a really, having that kind of reliance is a really good type of reliance because you pay it forward and you pay it back, and you pay it forward and you pay it back. Other factors beyond the chain. Inflation. I've talked about that. It's huge. The cost of goods right now is going up at 5.4% right now. It's huge. It's higher than it's been. I don't know. I don't know the age range of the people that are on this call. I grew up in the 70s. I saw what inflation looked like. I saw what not having gasoline looked like. I saw what having shortages looked like, right? And that was a time when you didn't even have organic food. You just had kind of like whatever there was. In that moment in time, gardening was not the type of thing that it is today. Luckily for us, we've gone back to that space where a lot of us are growing food, and a lot of us are using gardening as a tool for a lot of different things, at home. Huge, factors for me are, health. That's like number one for me, is why I'm going to get into the next thing, which is growing healthy organic food. For me, it's health. It all starts right there, because if I have a strong defense immune system, I have a strong way to go ahead and fight what's happening. Things that I have no control over. What I do have control over is, what do I do for my body? What do I ingest? What do I choose to surround myself with? What kind of information am I hanging on to, and what kind of stuff am I willing to let go of? Trust, on some levels, there's so many areas where trust has been broken in our society right now. And there's, ways to help build trust are for sure in the garden, and for sure in growing food, and for sure in ways where, how can I actually help you, not judge you, not care where you are on the side, what side of the fence you're on, but how can we like build some trust together? And how do I, learn how to trust any of the things that, like right now, if I don't trust the food safety, I don't trust food security, I don't trust the supply chain, a lot of those things that we've taken for granted in our lives, in our adult lives, are now disappearing. So the other factors that are important, safety, security, liberty, if you don't have food, let's put it this way. We see what's happening in Australia right now. If you can't go out, or you can't do things, or you're limited by what you can do because we don't know what's going to happen next, it's really important to start thinking like, okay, maybe I need to look at this in a different way, because maybe I won't have the same levels of freedom that I enjoy right now, because we've all gone through it recently. We've all had things that we cannot do, or we've, had moments in time during the last 2 years where we've had to just alter the course. So, I pray this never happens, but I don't know. I'm a big believer in watching what information I'm being given, and I hope that we're still we can save seeds, we can grow our own food. We don't have different types of arbitrary governance put on us, so that that makes it any harder than it's already been. So that's why I put liberty in there. So what can we really do? And this is before we get into growing food. We can get prepared. We can make lists of the things of like, okay, so what are the things around our yard, around our house, around our place? Like, what things do we need to do to make sure that our space is secure? Our space is safe. Our space is as good as we can make our space. Stock up on stuff that we're going to use. So like, if you're going to use stuff in the garden, or you're going to use stuff in terms of growing food, or you're going to need stuff in terms of medical supplies, stock up on stuff. Don't hoard. Don't be greedy. Don't take more than you need, but like, be proactive. Think about it, and also, if that maybe a bag of soil that you buy right now, costs X amount of dollars, and because of the way the supply chain is going to be, it's going to be $3 or $4 more at the end of the year, beginning of next year for the spring. Buy a few bags. Support your local retailer. Create some synergy. That's a smart way to buy. That's a smart way to stock up. It's not a greedy way to do that. Become more self-reliant. Think about the things. What can I do? So with us having an urban homestead at our place, we look at the things that we need to keep the homestead running. I look at the things on the farm to keep the farm running. What do we need? Do I have those things to keep this farm running? Because a lot of people are depending on us. At the homestead, my family's depending on us, and there are people that if all of a sudden there's no food, they know we have food. They know that we're a source that you can get food. And in terms of our farms, we're creating products there that people are depending on for their gardens. And so it's important for us to be able to continue to work, and that helps build that cycle. Don't just believe the internet or the news, because I'm telling you guys, unless you're living it firsthand, unless you're seeing it, unless you're knowing what's going on, don't believe it, live it. Okay, I'm with every passing day, I'm less of a fan of the news, and I'm less of a fan of the internet. And I find what those two things do to me a lot of times is take me away from my actual purpose. Take me away from what I'm really supposed to be doing here and focusing on a bunch of nonsense. Question authority. I was raised in a time, I was a punk rocker. I may not look like it now, but I was raised in a time where I question authority. I don't just listen to what's being dished out. I use my mind, I use my brain, I use my experience, and I look at, is this something that I want to go along with, or is this something I don't want to go along with? And a lot of times I fight authority. I fight the CDFA in California all the time on stuff. We just are able to label our bags now with non-GMO on there after a 3-year fight with them about that. They were telling us we couldn't do that. And I was saying, why? Why can't I do that? I have 10 years of genetic IDs. I have all of these labs. I have all of these things. You tell me why I can't do it. And finally, they had nowhere else to go, and they approved it. But if I would have caved, you know what they would have said? Ha, we won. but they didn't win because what they were doing was wrong. And I wasn't gonna sit back and take it. So, I still have a little Joe Strummer in me. Follow the financial data. Look and see what's out there financially. You can get a lot of tips on what's happening in the world if you follow a little bit, start learning a little bit more about the financial markets. I do that a lot. It tells me a lot about what's going on. Some of the stuff that you'll find in, some of the Bloomberg reports that come out, some of the different things that you look at, and they'll give you a lot of tips on where shortages are coming, what's happening next, where should I be, where do I need to be aware, and where should I be spending my money, where should I be saving my money. Take charge of your health. If anything, this experience, the last 20 months, has taught me to take charge of your health, and that starts with where we're going next, which is grow your own food. And it's not just, what we're putting in our body. It's how we're treating our body. It's how we're treating our psyche. It's how we're treating ourselves. I know this is a little bit different class than I normally do. We're going to get into the gardening part in a second. But to me, one of the things that's super important is that people are burnt out. People's adrenal glands are shot. People can't continue to take the level of stress they're taking every single day. And we have to find other outlets. We have to find other ways to allow ourselves the freedom to breathe and to live and to exist in a way that's worth existing and living. So for me, a big thing of grow your own food, huge. That's next. Growing healthy organic food. No, that's not healthy organic food, okay? I happened to see this when I was on one of my trips back east, and I was just like, man, I'm going to use that picture somewhere. So reasons to grow organic food: body, mind, spirit. Those three things, just your body itself, your mind, growing food, being in the garden, when you're out there and you're putting your hands in the dirt and you're planting things. And a lot of you guys are gardeners, so there's no reason you would even be on here, I'm assuming. Spend more time. If you spend 3 hours a week in the garden, find a way to carve out another hour. Find a fourth hour. Find a way to, I was telling you about making lists. Make lists about each season. What are you planting? Do I have the seed stock for that? What do I want to do next? Do those things so that you can, literally be in a place where you have a roadmap. You have a game plan. You're not just, out there floundering in the wind. We've got something that's going on, and it makes a lot of sense. So that's a huge thing to do. And for me, spirit, when I'm in the garden, when I'm on the farm, when I'm in that place where I am able to feed my soul, that's as important as what I'm putting in my body. Because it's the thing that calms me down. It's the thing that centers me. It's the thing that takes me out of resentment or anger or hostility or frustration or all of those things that deplete our immune system. Really, really, really important to be able to do that. The other reason to grow food, this is a really good reason, because commodity, if all of a sudden, let's take an example, if all of a sudden our stores, the shelves are bare in the stores, right? We have an ability with commodity, if you grow apples or peaches or pears or oranges or whatever, you have an ability to trade with other people, other types of food. You have something that's worth something other than just dollars and cents or gold. You have something. Food is a commodity. Seeds are a commodity. And in a time where the supply chain breaks down, and honestly, guys, I hope and pray this never truly happens to any of us, but I'm seeing stuff happen that I just have never seen before. And so I'm going like, okay, well, I think it's time that we get more proactive. And so for me, having stuff that I can trade to people, and if I don't need to trade it, give it to them. If people are hungry or people need something, or people in my community or family members, give them food, at least have the ability to supply, be our own small, kind of supply network, because that helps our food safety and our food security. And it makes everybody, it takes the tension level down, several notches if you can do that. And that's really important, and these are things like, and I put a compass in here. So it's like, find your compass. This is a time where we all need to find, where is our North Star? Where's our North? Where are we lining up here? And who are we trusting? And why are we trusting them? And why are we not listening to what's happening inside of us? And why are we not listening to what's been being told to us out in the garden? Or or when we look at food, or we look at something and go like, what, that's what I need to be eating. That's what my body's asking for. So the key to growing an organic garden is to go beyond organic. So what does that mean? No, I don't expect all of you guys to become biodynamic farmers. What I do expect you guys to do, at least just hear me out, is to join what I call the true organic revolution. So start to look at the things that you are actually buying, or the things that you're putting in your garden, or the things that you are thinking about putting in your garden. Where do I start? Soil. If you are going to be a true organic gardener, you're going to become a biological gardener or a biological farmer. What you're looking at right there is a handful of biodynamic compost and true organic compost. And what's in that is trillions of microbes, trillions of beneficial bacteria, fungi, larger, microscopic animals, soil animals. And that right there is a food source for the native soil that you have in your garden. And also, if you're growing in raised beds, it's a way to add biology and add nutrient into your soil. So if you want to know where you start and what is the most important thing in your garden, it's not your plants, it's not your watering, it's nothing but your soil. That's the key. In nature, without soil, you have no nutrient, you have no plants, you have no nothing. So that's where it starts. That's where you need to be focused. And that's the place where you don't ever want to skimp. So how to build great soil. I put a gold card up on top there because that's your gold standard, is how you don't need gold bars, guys. You need good soil. That's your gold bar, okay? So how to build great soil, you top dress and you amend with organic farm-made compost or really good homemade compost. You can make really good homemade compost. You have to try. You have to keep banging away at it. The one thing that I will tell you is that vegetative-based compost do not have the nutrient density of compost that has a manure component to it. So there are a lot of people who are, who've asked us to make vegan compost. And that's a different discussion, but we're doing something like that on another side project right now. And I've made a lot of compost on our properties and on the different farms and stuff that we consult on. And what I have to tell you is, if you're going to go ahead and use a plant-based compost only, then you have to do a lot of top dressing, and you're going to have to add a lot of mineral, and you're going to have to add, things like kelp, things that you can use to get additional mineral components into your garden. The other thing that I'm really into is start using compost teas. Compost teas, if you've ever heard me talk before, they're I think the greatest cheat in the organic garden. And I'm using compost tea all the time. Let me go back one thing on the top dress and amend. Amending is when you're going to amend the garden for a new garden season. So your spring, your summer, your fall garden. You're going to go ahead and amend the soil when you're doing that. And that could be a couple of ways you're going to do it. Because everybody always asks us, how do you do that? You can either, if you're growing in the ground in the soil, go ahead and put a good inch or two of compost on top of the soil, water that stuff in, let it get in. If you're on soil that hasn't been gardened before, you can go ahead that first time and break it in the first time. But after that, break that plane. After that, don't do it again. And the other thing is, if you're growing in raised beds, you can go ahead and pull out, that first, 4 inches of material that's in there, and maybe in 5 inches, and go ahead and put some compost down on there, put some rock dust down there on that lower area, water all that stuff in, put some worm castings in that area, and then go ahead and fill that raised bed back up with a good potting soil. Start using compost teas. I use compost teas with frequency. Oh, and one last thing on the top dressing. I top dress everything in my food gardens. Probably every 6 to 8 weeks, I just go out there and top dress, at a 1/16 of an inch, and then I water everything in. What that is, that becomes my slow release fertilizer, because you've got all the major, minor nutrients and trace minerals in finished compost. Then I'm using the compost teas. What compost teas do in the garden, and it's great for you, is it gets all of those nutrients at root level of the plants. So you're feeding your plants, but also you've got all of this biology that's in the compost tea, and you're also feeding the soil at the same time. So it's a great way to do both things at the same time. The other thing for compost tea is you can use it as a foliar spray if you have things that get fungal diseases. Compost tea that's bacterially dominant is a great way to mitigate fungal disease. It's also a great way to stimulate root growth, and it's a great way to mitigate root shock, transplant shock. So for those reasons, my first 2 things are compost and compost teas. If you look at if you listen to all the things I just told you, and you don't take away anything else from this whole conversation other than that guy's nuts, he thinks the supply chain is going to crash, but I think I should use compost and compost teas, fantastic, I'm good with that. So potting soils, there's a zillion potting soils out there. Find the absolute best organic potting soil that you can find. And what you're going to do is fill your beds up. I just, on our urban homestead, we just created a whole new raised bed section. And what we're doing is we've taken the 2x6x6 horse troughs, and because we're in an area up on the hillside, and the rats can't get into those guys, so we are filling them up with potting soil this week, and we're going to start growing in them. We'll start watering those down, activating the compost that's in there, activating the natural fertilizers that are in there, and getting it ready. And our other beds that we've already been growing in, because we have in-ground beds and we have raised beds. In our raised beds, we're going to go ahead and do what I told you earlier, skim off that, that first, 5 inches or so of material that's in there, put the compost down, put some volcanic rock dust down, some worm castings, and then go ahead and fill it back up with our best organic potting soil. The other thing I would love all you guys to do is throw away all your faux organic and non-organic fertilizers and amendments. The stuff that you look at and you think to yourself like, I don't really think that's really organic. In my world, I call those things faux organic. So we have a lot of stuff that's labeled organic that because the powers that be, the government allows us to label things organic under the NOP program. But things for me that I never use in my garden, and I'll tell you why. I never use bone meal, blood meal, feather meal. I don't use chicken meal. I don't use cottonseed meal. I don't use the first ones because of what the animals are fed. And they're all from GMO feedstocks, and they're all sprayed with herbicides. And then with the cottonseed meal, you've got, heavy pesticide use. So I don't ever use those things in there. If there's a product in there that I know could come from conventional farm animal ag, I generally don't use that product. Another great thing to do too, if you haven't done it, set up a worm bin and a composting bin. Those are lifesavers. If all of a sudden the supply chain, right, shuts down and you can't just go buy compost, or you can't just go buy worm castings, if you're making them, maybe that you'll have enough there to help get you through, or help learn how to inoculate with microbes so that you don't have to use such heavy doses if you've already been amending your soil correctly and top dressing correctly. choose your compost wisely. So there's a lot of compost out there that come from municipal compost, municipal waste. I stay away from all of that. Keep choosing your compost wisely. So a lot of times we'll see things. I just pulled a picture of this bag that I took up in the Northwest. It's a compost company that's up in the Seattle and Portland area that does local stuff. But if you look at it, it said made from locally recycled garden prunings, food products, and vegetable trimmings. So if we were in a class room right now, I'd look at you all and say, so what's wrong with that? Looks pretty good, right? Because it says organic contains no biosolids or steer manure. Well, yeah, it shouldn't, you can't have any biosolids in there. And having no steer manure is like, wow, congratulations, guys. So why I personally wouldn't use this compost if it was a choice that I had to get, if it was the only compost I could get, who knows, maybe I'd mix it with my own homemade compost and make some compost teas. But locally recycled garden prunings mean they went into the green bin. If they went into the green bin, you have a bunch of neighbors who are also spraying pesticides and herbicides. You probably have a bunch of neighbors that are growing organically as well, and wonderful for all those guys. But for each of those guys, we have another guy who's not growing organically. And they're throwing their stuff into the green bins, and those green bins are getting mixed in with everybody else's waste. Sorry, guys, I'm having a sip of water here. So, and food products and vegetable trimmings. Were they grown organically? Probably not. I could call those guys up and ask, hey, do you know where the food trimmings came from? Because depending on where that food came from, if it's grown organic and it's grown organic the way you grow or the way I grow, awesome, I want that. But if it's just food waste that came from Taco Bell, I don't want it. I don't want that vegetable waste in my food production. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I put the slide up, go beyond organic. Here's my favorite compost. I like compost like that. So that compost makes me happy. That compost is alive, it's living, it's full of biology, and it's composted correctly on a large scale. So if you're going to buy stuff on a large scale, what we don't see here is we don't see a giant waste management facility. What we see here is a farm. What we see here is windrows of compost. What we see by the different colors there that are happening, we see compost that's finishing back there and there in the middle, and then we see compost that's in a brand new stage. So you're seeing stuff that is at various stages of composting. And that's my favorite compost. So what's in your soil? What's in your guys' soil? I know what's in my soil. And throw these things away forever. If you have any of these kind of things sitting around there, like slow release plant food and stuff like Osmocote that says, yeah, it's okay for flower and vegetable, or any other stuff that's like that, I highly doubt that anybody on this Zoom presentation that shops at Lyngso has any of this stuff at home. But if you do, get rid of it, okay? And don't get stuff that is suspect. Then this to me is beyond suspect. If you look at the ingredients, I don't think so. Start your own seedlings. Hopefully, some of you out there have, are already saving seed. We save seed all the time, and it's great. So if we find something like this year, we had a celery that was unbelievable in our juices, right? It was an heirloom celery that was really dark green, like darker than I'd ever seen. And when you tasted that celery in the juices, you knew you were drinking real, amazing, organic, true organic, biodynamic celery. And so we let it go to flower, and we saved a lot of the seeds. And that's Norma's job on our urban farm. That's like her specialty. She's amazing at that. And we have a great seed library of stuff that we've have saved over the years. So, but pick out the stuff that you really that has real high nutrient density, that will grow well in your area, that will grow well in your garden. And that, and that again, could be that commodity that either you trade or that you use for your own health, or that you are sharing with other family members. Whoops, sorry, that was me. All right, seedlings are fun. You know, the other thing that's cool about seeds is you're planting a seed, the seeds pop, you get these little seedlings, and to see that life start and, you know, and to have, you know, there's nothing wrong with buying starts, by the way, too. If you can find good organic, good organic starts, buy them. If you're going to buy the starts, when you're planting them, shake off as much of that soil as you can, because most of the soil that come with starts is not that great. And go ahead and make sure those roots, very tender roots, make sure they're okay, that they're intact, and then put them in your, you know, really good organic potting soil. Or a really good, you can even, if you want to transition them again, you can put them in a seed starter. That works really, really well. But starting seeds is a great way, and build your seed library so that who knows what happens in the supply chain. But you know what? All those you know, if all of a sudden the nursery doesn't have starts for you, you have a way to create your own starts. Little simple ways to do that too are, you know, if you use speed trays, little speed trays like this, super, super easy way to get things going. So we say no to GMOs. Why? Why are we on the non-GMO team? It goes back to what I said to you. So use soils, use products that you know in your garden are non-GMO. Really, really important, because if you do, you're staying away from the herbicides, and the herbicide residue, especially in plants that are green leafy tissue, the herbicides tend to really uptake into that leafy tissue, and you're eating it. Going to any lengths for your garden. You know, this is one of my favorite pictures of all time. This guy has a scooter, but like, hey, he's out there picking up soil. That guy is taking soil back, and he did this multiple times to his garden. That's one of my friends' nurseries in Michigan, and he took that picture for me because he's like, you're not going to believe this guy drove back and forth like 5 times to get soil and take it back to get your soil to take it back to his garden. So go to any length. Compost teas. If you're not using compost teas, I'm telling you, you are totally missing the boat. I know that Lyngso sells compost tea. If not, you can make compost teas. If the supply chain breaks down, there's a lot of ways to go ahead and, you know, make your compost tea. I just put on here, you know, a hose end filter that I happened to be actually at a shop, and these guys wanted to make some compost tea, and I had some compost tea bags I was giving them, and so they threw on their filter on the end of the hose. I actually have some filters like this outside that we actually use, but right off of the spigot, and then we attach the hose to it. When you're making compost tea, if you have chloramine or chlorine, you know, in your water supply, don't worry about it. You can go ahead and put a 5-gallon bucket of water together to make tea. You can go ahead and let that off gas. You can go ahead and do a 33-gallon of tea out of a BPA-free, you know, food grade trash can that you can get at different places, and let it off gas, and then you can go ahead and make your tea. I make a lot of teas. We have tea brewers at our farm and at our urban homestead, but I do a lot of tea extractions where basically we're taking in a micron filter bag, we're putting, you know, a 1/4 pound of compost and some organic kelp and some worm castings, and we're making a tea extraction that way. And it's a really simple way to do it. You let it soak overnight. You give it a good squeeze, get the humic acid out of there, and then you go ahead and give it a really good stir. What I'm doing here is vortex stirring this. So we stir it one way, get the vortex going, continue to stir it, get some aeration going in that, get some energy going in that. You can stir it as much as, if you want, as much as 10 or 15 minutes, or, you know, just what most people do, which is a couple minutes, and they're like, okay, we're done. Let's put it into the apparatus and disperse it. Here's Ed getting ready to use the compost tea. He's giving it a good squeeze right there. So what he's doing is he's pulling it out of there, and he's going to squeeze this and get the humic acid out of there. And then you can take, like when we do tea bags like that, if you do it, or an extractor bag, you can just go ahead and dump the stuff that's in the tea bag into your garden somewhere, or throw it into your compost pile. So I'm going to give you some examples of a few gardens, a couple gardens I really like a lot that I've seen in my travels and just different people that I know. And so there's going to be a whole different variation of different types of garden here. Here's one of my buddies, Uncle Carlton, and he's got a great garden up in Canby, Oregon. He uses a lot of compost, a lot of teas. He's a biological gardener, a biological farmer, has a great little homestead. You can see Damien there enjoying the fruits of Uncle Carlton's labor. He's got some chickens. If you've got a place where you can have chickens, that's great. Great foragers. They're great to scratch up the soil. Great to go ahead and help to unearth things, keep some of the pests away. A lot of municipalities don't let you have chickens, but if your municipality does, I would say have them. And if you're in an area too, like where we are, you have to, where we've got a lot of coyotes and a lot of bobcats and mountain lions, you have to really be aware of that and make sure that you create an environment that's safe for the chickens. There's Uncle Carlton enjoying one of his salads. And he sent that to me a little while ago and said, like, are you jealous? And I'm like, we do the same exact thing, bud. Here's another Carl, one of my other buddy, Carl, and he's out there in his garden with a squash. And he's got a really beautiful little mini urban, homestead where he supplies a lot of the local, his local stores with excess produce. So he and his brother, here are the guys, here are the boys. There's Carl and his brother Sam. And they're out there taking a mental health break and just working in the beautiful Michigan sun. And they're out there in the garden. And they've got, I think, 2 or 3 stores that they sell produce to. And then they grow enough produce, grow enough veggies for their family. And they supply 2 families and I think 2 markets with produce from here. On our urban homestead, here we are, you can have a nice orchard if you can, or have a few trees. We have multiple trees in our orchard. I think we have, 50 fruit trees. And that, but we have a lot of variation in fruit on our property. So that's a really great thing to do. And also too, having fruit from fruit trees is another great, in the commodity concept, it's a really good component to have in there. Pumpkins, growing pumpkins, really easy to do if you've got some space. Just remember, they get really big and they run and they can be all over the place. But a great source of, if you can do it, the meat is good, the seeds are good. There's a lot of benefits to growing them. My personal favorite is the blood orange. So I love blood oranges. I'm totally into them, and we grow them at our place. And if you can grow them, I highly recommend them. What if you have no yard? There's a lot of people that go like, I have no space. I don't have anywhere to put a tree like that you just showed us. I have nowhere to grow like Uncle Carl does. This is called an earth box. And there's a way to grow in these that you can grow using compost and using bokashi. And if anybody has questions, I can show you how to find that out. But no joke, we had a space before we moved on to the urban homestead where we had to grow in these ramped up earth boxes that we created into probiotic gardens. And by using compost, by using bokashi, by using EM1, which is a biological inoculant, you can grow incredible food in these. I just want to show you one of the salads that we grew in them. I mean, that we had, I think at one point, 14 earth boxes going, and we had a prolific little small food garden going before we were able to move on to our new space. In your garden, I don't want you guys to use pesticides. There's a lot of ways to go and get around the pesticide issue, so, first start in the soil, with the nematodes. There's some great ant bait stations that we use in the orchard and use in areas where you have, ant infestations. The nematodes are, if you haven't used beneficial nematodes, every time we do a soil mix, and we're getting into a season where we're going to have, where we're going to have nematodes, out there to take care of aphids, whitefly. If you haven't used them, please use them. Don't ever, ever, ever spray. I love this cartoon. Do you also eat these with your mask on? The goal is health and sustenance. For us, we juice all the time. That's a cold press juicer. Behind there is a Vitamix, old Vitamix mixer. These are things that we grew in the garden and we juice all the time. We're looking to make sure that we have balanced diet, balanced nutrition. Strawberries that we grew in our garden. Healthy gut. The goal is to build a healthy gut. Get stuff that you're growing in the garden, growing in your soil. Build that immune system. There's nothing like creating your own safe place and your own safe space, and a place where you are creating sustenance for you, your family, your community, your friends. Microgreens. If you haven't, grown microgreens, so easy to grow. You can get multiple grows out of a couple trays, and really good in terms of a salad. Really good in terms of adding to juices. Adding, a great way to get a huge power pack of nutrient. Grow your juices at home. If they don't have juice at the store, you don't have to get juice at the store. You can make juice at home. Get a juicer and start growing things that that you can juice and that are going to be beneficial for you and that you like, and or that you might acquire a taste for. I'm drinking things now that I thought years ago I would never drink. Create a sustainable home, because you never know how long we've got in that home. Be in your home, love your home, enjoy your home. Life's a garden. We don't have to be stuck in this terrible, terrible, time where everything is a downer, where people are negative, where things look negative. Stay positive. And the best place to find positivity is out in the garden, for sure. Love grows here. That's something else I can tell you. I met my wife in a garden. I spent a lot of time out in the garden with my kids. Tomorrow, I'm about to show my granddaughter for the first time the garden. They just moved here from Seattle, and she loves tomatoes, and I have a zillion tomatoes, and I cannot wait for Huxley to eat some tomatoes. And the other thing is we have grapes that grow all along our fence line. The backside of the hill separates us from the mountain. And we had just a prolific year with our grapes. And the great thing is when we're walking out there, it's so cool to see the birds in the afternoon that we've left the grapes for on the outer side of the fence, and they come. And we have a family of deer that come down and eat the grape leaves and eat the grapes. And they come down and eat the fresh oak leaves on the oak trees. And just seeing that takes us away from the 5 o'clock news, takes us away from Dr. Fauci's next announcement, takes us away from all the stuff that right now we're on overload from it. I don't want to bury my head in the sand from it, but I'm on overload from it. And when I go out into that space and I go out into that garden, I'm growing love there. I'm growing love for my garden. I'm growing love for my family. I'm growing love for myself. It's the best line of defense. A final word from Joey Ramone. For me, punk is about real feelings. It's not about, yeah, I am a punk and I'm angry. That's a lot of crap. It's about loving the things that really matter. Passion, heart, and soul. Thank you. Be happy gardeners, you guys. There's Uncle Carl.
Thanks, Randy. That was really, really something. Thank you so much. It was it's a different class than what you normally do. I'm glad we did this.
very different class than what we normally do. But I think we're at a different time, you know.
Yeah.
You know, if people want, you know, specific questions answered for in their garden, they can fire me an email. I'll answer the question, you know. But I think I wanted to take a big look at everything.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
you know,
Here's a question for you, Randy, and I think it's an important one. Define true organic versus something that is labeled organic. For example, something can be labeled organic but not grown organically. How does that work?
yeah, and that it goes back to when I was talking about the government, that goes back to the National Organic Program, and that goes back to when we started the program in the early 2000s. It was really about where we were at such a new place that the government was trying to find a spot that was good for the conventional ag and for the tree hugging organic side of things, the natural and holistic farmers are now going to become organic. And what's happened is that because we have different levels of organic from 35 to 70 to 90% to 100% organic. There's nothing that's consistent in dictating the terms of what does organic mean. So what they've done is they've left a lot of this up to the consumer, which, you know, when you're trying to have packaging and labeling that is honest and transparent, everybody thinks, oh, great, it's organic. And that's a great question, because maybe it isn't, you know, because you can take conventional ag waste and from a conventional farm, and you can go ahead and compost it. And as long as your metals counts are good, and as long as you compost it the way you're supposed to compost it, and as long as you have your pathogen reduction is done, you can sell that compost as organic and approved for organic food production. So when I say true organic, I mean 100% every single input that went into that. So we make compost at Malibu Compost, right? The dairy cows that we partner with, the dairies that we partner with, I test the feedstock. I test we test everything to make sure that there's no GMOs in there. I run toxicology panels. We do everything that we can do to make sure that we know that every single input is 100% organic. So when I grow at home, when we grow at our homestead, we're literally growing everything that we can, which is pretty much everything now, 100% organic. And that to me is true organic. And that's the goal for me. That's my goal, because again, I question authority. I question the rules. I always want to know. I'll tell you something. We have another company that we're involved with now, Number 2 Organics, and it is not a biodynamic soil company. What we are involved in, you can read the story on the Number 2 Organics website if you guys are interested. But what we were asked to come in and do is to reclaim 100-year-old dairies that were being sold out from, because they're becoming Amazon super sites and FedEx sites and all these other things, right? And so what I did and what we're doing is we're testing all that material. We've tested it all with toxicology panels and different heavy metals analysis and things like that, so that we could make sure that if we were going to go ahead and put out an NOP organic versus a Malibu Compost true organic, then I knew that all the levels were safe, everything was safe in it. So we're getting involved in that NOP, CDFA, OIM, organic input material market, because so many people are buying stuff that they don't know and they're not sure. So if they can't afford what we make or they need more, then we're going to make sure we make something that's in that second tier that's really, really good and that you can trust.
Great, thanks, Randy. Here's another question for you. What can we do as individuals to add to this strong and resilient supply chain?
I think first of all, support your local stores for sure. Shop local, support local, buy from your local farms. That's one of the reasons I love going to the co-op, because I get to see what farms they buy stuff from, which is really great. So I think support that. Make sure that people can keep jobs. Make sure that the people in your immediate area, because if we can do that, then it kind of ripples out to the bigger picture, because we have control of where we shop here. The other thing I will say is I'm not a huge fan of the big boxes, and I'm not a huge fan of big business. And one of the things that I think that was done very, very, very wrongly in terms of the way the lockdowns were handled, I don't think it was fair that big box stores were able to stay open. And a lot of smaller stores were not allowed to be open, and that, the government was deeming to us who is essential and who is not essential. I don't think that's the government's job. I think the government's job is to protect us and to, look out for each citizen's welfare. But I think that, so for me, I don't shop. I'm not necessarily a big box kind of guy. I shop locally. I support local. Even like for an Ace Hardware, I'll go into a local Ace who's part of a bigger network, but that Ace Hardware that I go into is owned locally. And so I think that's a really great place to start and make sure that our neighbors are able to supply, to feed their families and able to pay their bills and able to, supply the other members of our community. And then that will ripple out to the bigger distributors and the other larger networks.
Yeah, fantastic. That's wonderful to support local and really support the strong local community there. So I think that's about it, Randy, for the questions. Any closing remarks before we sign off here for the day?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, guys, is I'm so happy that we have the opportunity to face these challenges we're facing today, because I think it's going to make all of us better and stronger and wiser and hopefully more caring and more loving and more understanding. And and adversity builds strength, and I know that a lot of times in my, world, the last couple of years, there were days where I was real tired and people on our farms were tired, and but we kept going, and we rallied around each other, and we rallied around our community, and are grateful to people like you guys can at Lyngso who support us and buy our products. And we're grateful that we get to support all the people in our community. And we're going to win this battle that we're all in right now with this pandemic and all the stuff that's going on, all the confusion, with peace, love, and understanding. That's how we're going to win this battle. And that's all
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Randy. That was fantastic. And I want to thank everybody for being in attendance today. And thank you, Randy, again for this wonderful class. And the class will be posted on our community resources page. And again, if you folks have any questions, please feel free to email myself or Randy, and I will share the presentation with you folks via email. So thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Randy.
Thanks, everybody. God bless.